Welcome to the channel. In this video, we are going to talk about fret saws. Now, these are different from coping saws. Coping saws usually have a bigger blade that have pins in them that hold the blades in place. Now, when it comes to fret saws, the blades are a lot smaller so they can fit down into the curve, but that means they won't be held on by pins. And they're usually held on by these clamps, and you have to tension them and do all of this kind of stuff. With that, I've been hearing a lot of people saying that they're having issues with their blade slipping out or the blade breaking. There is a high chance that that's going to be user error because you've got to be gentle with these saws. They are nothing like a back saw. Back saws have bigger teeth most of the time, but they have a thicker plate that you can get pretty aggressive with. I don't have to worry about this plate breaking, okay? And there's nothing for the blade to slide out of. When it comes to these fret saws, the teeth are small. The plate is small. So you've got to be patient with it, be calm with it, let the teeth do the work. It's kind of like a table saw. You might have noticed you can't just force material through a table saw. You got to slowly push it. And it kind of feels like it's feeding itself. The blade is feeding itself. You've got to let these fret saws do the same thing. So let's go ahead and dive into the setup of these, and then I will show you guys a little bit in use how to avoid the blade slipping and how to avoid the blade breaking. Alright, so when it comes to fret saws, coping saws, whatever it is, there are two main things that you need to pay attention to. Now, I have a separate video that talks about why I chose the new concept saw, so I'll put a link to that up in the corner if you're still trying to decide which one to get. Now, if you already have this saw and you just want to know how to put it together, how to use it, there are two things you got to pay attention to. How the blade is held, and then how it's tensioned. So even if you have a saw like this is a jeweler's saw, this is how the blade is held in, this is how the blade is tensioned. If you are looking at a saw and it has no way to tension the blade, get rid of it. Especially when it comes to a fret saw, because you need to be able to tighten that blade down to have it work successfully. Here's another piece of advice as well. If you got a jeweler's saw and you have these little tiny jeweler's blades, go get fret saw blades, actual fret saw blades, because they are bigger, they'll cut faster, they're less prone to breaking because they're bigger, and you're still going to be able to do the same thing with them, just more efficient. The other thing with these jeweler blades is they break super easily. These ones, they don't break as easily. You're able to bend them. I mean, you don't want to bend them, but that's just an example, so keep that in mind. So, let me bring you in close, and I'm going to show you how we get this saw set up and ready to use. Alright, so the first thing that you want to pay attention to is make sure the tensioning is loose, okay? If this tensioning is tight and you tighten it down when you're putting the blade in, you won't be able to tighten it later. So make sure the tension is loose and this thing's able to move, okay? The next thing is, you have the holes right here, that's where the blade goes into, like we spoke about. Now take a second and think about the blade. There is a flat part and then a thin part. You do not want to try to clamp on the thin part. You want to try to clamp on the thick part, okay, or the wider part. The other thing to pay attention to is teeth orientation. So right now, I have it in a pull cut. You can switch these around and have it in a push cut, but that's going to be preference for you. I prefer a pull cut when it comes to a fret saw. You might prefer a push cut. So test that out for yourself and see what you like. So when you put this into the hole, you want to make sure that that flat side is where this thumb screw is this thumb screw is going to touch. So put that in there, bottom it out as far as it can go, tighten this down. Okay? Go to the other one, do the same thing, put the blade in the hole. For this one, push the tension. So that way, see how it bent the blade? If I tighten this, it's not going to go into here as far as it can. So push this so it goes in there as far as possible and tighten down that thumb screw. From here, it's time to mess with the blade tension, because right now you can see that this is loose. You want to work on tightening this. So what I like to do is go halfway, see, I can already tell that's going to be too tough because I'm getting, or too tight because I'm getting resistance. You want to be able to pull this all the way. So right now, not going to be able to do that. I need to loosen this tension. And it goes, it is lefty-loosey. Okay, I wasn't sure if it was backwards or not. So there we go, halfway. Still too tight, let's loosen it. Yeah, a little bit too tight still. And there we go. Now it's tightened, tensioned, and ready to go. While you're tensioning the saw, if you notice that these are sliding out, your tension is too tight. The tension will always win against these thumb screws trying to clamp the blade in place. So just loosen your tension and then try again. I mean, you can always check to make sure these are tight, but there's only so far you can tighten them down. So loosen your tension, try again if you see it slipping. This is oak. I already cut some just fake dovetails, ignore the angle and everything like that. So what you want to do is take your saw and drop it down the kerf. Now this kerf is big enough for me to be able to turn the blade. If your kerf is smaller, you might need to drop it in, start a couple cuts to turn the blade. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now for this one, maybe I have to turn it a little bit. Oak is tough. Take your time. Don't push. Let the teeth do the work. You can angle it one way, angle it the other way. That helps speed it up a little bit. But just let the saw do the work. Alright, so main takeaway here. Be gentle when you're using a fret saw. Let the saw do the work. Don't try to force it. Alright, if you guys have any questions, any comments, anything like that, if there's a different technique that you use, let us know down below. I hope you guys enjoyed and have a good day.